Welcome to another episode of Terrific Tips for Business. I, of course, am Terry Watkins, your host and chief idea catcher over here at Terrific Tips for Business and Spin Frogs. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. I am super excited to have this new friend of mine, Nancy Ruffner, with us. And for those of you who don't know who Nancy is, let me introduce you. Nancy is a patient advocate. She's a consultant, an educator, and a coach. She founded and owns Navigate NC. It's a patient advocacy consulting group whose services help persons and individuals to navigate the medical, legal, insurance, and housing challenges that come about during change. And since 2013, the company has emerged as a fast-growing agency with the goal of becoming a market leader for patient advocacy services in the Southeast. She's quite the trendsetter. That's why she's on our show today. Nancy serves as the voice of patients for their loved ones, and she is among the first in her industry to earn the credential of BCPA, Board Certified Patient Advocate. She speaks regularly to regional groups on topics involving navigating complex healthcare systems, aging, talking and planning, and living with chronic conditions. All of these things have touched every single one of us in some way or another, and that is why Nancy is with us today. She's designed and delivered coursework within the I actually don't know that word, Nancy. Gerontology. Haha, there we go. Coursework within a gerontology curriculum at the community college level, and that has ushered talent people into their senior care industry even. So she's quite well versed. She's been around this block a little bit. And the beautiful thing is this industry itself is actually fairly new. So she's got quite a lot of experience under her belt for something that really hasn't been around for that long. But along with all of that, the online teaching of today, Nancy has really served as an adjunct instructor for both Duke University and North Carolina State University. So those of you who are Duke and Carolina fans, she has no bias here. We walk the middle line. And she's a lifelong learning programs teaching course of her own design for each of those. And most recently, she's answered the call within the healthcare system to help both young and new in business owners to connect with clients and grow their practices. She enjoys provoking thought and helping folks to create and implement a plan. So without further ado, Nancy, thanks so much for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. So I've got a question for you. This is a very new industry. Was that a challenge when you were first getting started?
It has been a challenge. I'm in a new profession in a young industry selling services which are intangibles. So it's kind of a triple challenge.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So with that triple challenge, I bet that's been the biggest challenge. So what has been some of the lessons that have kind of come out of that challenge for you, if you're willing to share?
Sure. I think the first thing was a reckoning, a realization when I hung out my own shingle and left what I refer to as big healthcare, big medical. When I left that, I left with skills and surety and a lot of gumption. And what I encountered was I didn't know as much as I thought I did about client acquisition. And it smacks a lot of small business owners in healthcare in the face. Clients were always there. We've always had clients, next appointment, next bed, here comes the 10:30. And we have to go get clients. I have to attract them. I have to talk to them about money and rates and things that I'm not comfortable talking about. A lot of people are tripped up by that, and the rest of the marketing that goes with it.
Yeah, and that's really true for small business owners in general, not just people in the medical arena, that's just a whole nother layer, right? You have the medical space too, but it's really interesting, especially when you come out of a corporate environment where you just always had work. You were just always busy. And now all of a sudden, where are those people coming from?
That's
Interesting.
right.
Interesting.
And it forces you to come to know more about them. You've got to roll up your sleeves and dig in and really learn about the client, one that you thought you already knew. And there are so many more dimensions and layers of perception that you can learn about your client or your ideal customer or your target audience. There's so much more to learn so that you can relate to them and they to you on a way that a meaningful level.
So what did that process look like for you? Was there somebody that came along and was a mentor to you? Was there video resources or education materials that you tapped into? Kind of how did you discovered this was a kind of a painful realization when you were out on your own, you hung your shingle, and then all of a sudden nothing's happening. You don't have a patient to see. So what was the kind of process that you went through for understanding and realizing that there's so much more to understanding the people that you're serving?
I had to get busy and learn. There were a few resources, but I couldn't see them. I couldn't see them. Now, as a pretty strong researcher, then my solution was to let's go and find some of this stuff online. Let's go and find who can teach it to me. When I began my agency, Navigating NC, in 2013, there were 2 patient advocates in North Carolina. And I and Lana Benton in Winston-Salem locked elbows and we hung on. We were each other's support. We were each other's cross-referral counterparts, sounding boards, everything. So there wasn't a lot of support out there, and there was nobody doing anything quite like me. And that can be very lonely. I chose to treat it as a challenge. I sought help. I think some of the best help that I got and still get is from the Small Business Center. In some states, it's called SBDC, Small Business Development Center. In North Carolina, it's SBC, Small Business Center. And there is a small business office affiliated with 52 community colleges is where you find them. And they help you with startup, sales, marketing, tax, legal entity in a number of ways. Formal coursework, free webinars, and since COVID, online, everything at your fingertips. They've helped me tremendously. I learned a lot of what I needed to learn about marketing and those additional layers that I mentioned of knowledge and put it into play. They have free coaching for anybody. And that was huge because you get your cheerleader there, you get your soundboard there, you get your accountability buddy, whether you like it or not, there. And that was really helpful. I still tap into the Small Business Center even now because my agency, my business is growing and we're entering some new initiatives. And I sought help once again. I sought a coach. You know, what coach doesn't need a coach? Everybody needs a coach because we can't see it when we're inside it sometimes. And the fact that we're small business owners who hate silos, well, we are in one. We are siloed and we need each other for support and soundboarding purposes, you know? Best practices, all of that. Let's don't reinvent the wheel. Let's see what everybody else is doing and see if it fits me. That kind of stuff was invaluable to me starting out, and it still is. I would tell anybody, look up Small Business Center. SCORE is another one. The Society of Retired Executives, again, mentoring folks who have been in business, sometimes have started multiple businesses, giving back now, teaching us how to do that. And so there's been a number of people, obviously significant folks in my life. There was nobody ahead of me that I could really look at, fashion mine like theirs. It was total freestyle there for a while. And I think the most significant phrase that I've heard that seemed to fit was, I needed a me So I became one. Now I'm a coach and now I help, but there wasn't anybody. So I had to step into that role.
I love a lot of what you said. You're so right. The free resources that are out there for people who are getting started, they have an idea, maybe they see a need in the community, maybe they've had an experience that has led them to believe there is a failing or a, missing piece to an industry. And they're really creating that blue ocean. For those of you who've read the book, Blue Ocean Strategy, it's a brilliant book. It talks about how we create our own blue ocean, which is basically creating a hybrid industry that never existed before. And it allows us to stop competing on price or positioning. And now we get to compete on that value proposition, which is exactly what you've done, Nancy. And it's such a brilliant thing to do. And that's really where the freedom comes in. But again, you end up in this position where nobody else has done it before. So what the hell does it mean? What does it look like? What are you doing? Tapping into those people who have been maybe in one industry or another that can provide that insight about that specific industry and being able to say, okay, so I'm going to take the nuggets over here that serve me and the nuggets over there that serve me, and I'm going to mesh them together. And now I'm going to have exactly what I need. So beautiful and brilliant. And thank you for the shout out to the small business centers. They're definitely invaluable. And, I actually know Lana too. She's amazing. So that's really cool.
Is. Yes, she is.
Yeah. So she just got a plug here and she didn't even know it.
We'll let her know.
We'll let her know. Exactly. So, okay. So you sought out these resources. You knew this was what you wanted to do. You sought out these resources to help you work through the things that you recognized were pitfalls that you were facing. So what of this, you saw this giant pitfall of not knowing how to attract clients. And so that's why you got to those resources. That's so beautiful that you were aware enough to pay attention to that was something that was going on.
And even those had another layer. When you start to network, when you start to pursue services like the SBC, there I am sitting shoulder to shoulder with people who were seeking for whatever business that they're starting. And so everybody's energized, right? Because we're going to build this thing, my thing. And what I found in there, I found partners. I found my bookkeeper. I have hired a virtual assistant after a while when my business was bigger and I needed help. She is now a business manager. You can find the people that you need for your business, but I also was finding the people that would help my clients, their circle of care. I was finding the folks that they would need and starting those relationships. And if that isn't enough to be prepared to serve your client and help them build their circle of care and their team, you find referral partners. We can cross refer. I can nurture that person. I can come to know them. We can refer back and forth. I mean, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Absolutely. And I talk a lot about networking, strategic relationships, referral partners in my YouTube channel. For those of you who are watching right now on YouTube, there's a ton of other content out there, short versions, 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes long, that talk about networking. And I was actually just having this conversation with my husband earlier today, and his business boomed when he stopped being in places, stopped wasting time in social media networks that weren't producing for him, and started focusing on the 3, 4, or 5 people who were consistently passing him referrals. And when he focused in on those relationships, the referrals got stronger, they got clearer, they got better, they converted more. And he didn't have to spend a ton of time just posting noise. Yeah. He didn't even have to post at all. All he had to do was invest in that one relationship. So strategic partners are so valuable. That's such a great tip, and definitely something that any small business owner, whether you're in the healthcare industry or in a different industry, we can't do it alone, y'all. We need people. We need other people. And so finding somebody who's working with your ideal customer or who is working with your industry in a different way, that is going to be that eye-opener path that you need, because we are sometimes just too close to it.
I agree. And
So,
I think to add to where it crosses over to your industry, I had to come to know, part of my coming to know those clients is, well, where do they hang out online? How do I find that out? And it's social media experts that can help us to learn that. There's no need for Nancy to be on 10 platforms. Nancy needs to be where her clients are. What I call, because when I call it getting in front of their windshield, we need to be there, or their WHEN, windshield, because when they need you, you need to be there with a messaging that means something to them. It's not what I have. And I know you teach this a lot to your clients. It's not what I have, what I do, my services are. No, it's what I can, how I can help you with what's going on with you.
So good, Nancy. So all of this has led to your business growing because you figured out how to get that phone ringing. And I hope the people who are listening to this conversation have seen that value and are taking notes on where to get those pieces of support, because we all need to figure out, if we're starting a business, if we've been in business for 50 years, it doesn't matter. As soon as our referral sources dry up, as soon as our potential client sources dry up, we don't have a business anymore. Doesn't matter how long you've been in business, you still need to know how to connect and engage with your customers. So good, Nancy. So if this conversation is serving you, smash the like button, go ahead and subscribe. You don't want to miss another conversation like this. And while we're at it, Nancy, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
They can look at my website, nancyruffner.com. I'm also very active on Facebook because that's where my clients are. There's Nancy Ruffner, Better Know Healthcare. There's also a Facebook group. If you're in healthcare, I'd love you to join our group, Better Know Healthcare. I offer individual, one-to-one coaching as well as group coaching through nancyruffner.com, coursework, and starting a mastermind. And you'll get a giggle out of this because we're in healthcare and because our job is to ease the confusion and the pain. We're starting a mastermind group of small business owners called Painkillers.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's fantastic.
What we do. It's who we are.
And it's such a hot topic in today's world with this opioid pandemic and painkillers and so many people being in some very various level of pain. And I'm not discrediting or disqualifying somebody's legit pain. Everybody experiences pain on different levels. There are different things that trigger pain in different people. So pain is a very real thing. And pain exists in both the mental space and the physical space. And that's the tricky part about it. And so really having healthcare professionals that are aware of that are sensitive to that, and that are trying to find ways to prevent the spread of the opioid pandemic, but still provide that pain relief that our community needs is so, so important. So thank you for doing that and creating that group.
There's a lot of pain in healthcare. There's a lot of pain in COVID, going in, coming out. Looks like we might go back in. There's a lot of small business pain. People are struggling. The client is struggling. Small businesses that serve them maybe also, and that's why I feel called to serve. This is a new form of advocacy for me to help prepare small business people to go out and serve. I can't serve them all. I might can help 5 people, but why not prepare 15 or 50? Because the need is so great. And I heard a statement, my driveway moment with NPR, that was the genesis for the whole coaching thing, other than people calling me and asking me to coach them. But I heard this lady say, I don't even know what topic she was talking about, but she said, the pain is on both sides, so my response must be to both sides. And I thought, that's it. We see our clients' pain. We see family confusion. We see pain in the pocketbook relative to healthcare. But there's a lot of pain inside of us too when we can't connect with our clients, when we know we have remedy, when we know we hold solution. That's pain too. And so I want to work in between those two pains. That I'll meet you at the on-ramp and we will merge into heavy traffic.
Amen. And be that translator for people so that you can work through the pain together.
Yep.
And come out the other side pain-free. Ah, it's amazing. So talk to us a little bit about what your vision is and what that process might look like to move to find that common ground understanding, to move through the pain on both sides of that conversation, because that's such a very real topic, especially right now. And we are getting ready to go back in. I know Guilford County just instituted mandatory masks again.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I heard a story, actually, sidebar, heard a story yesterday from my nurse. And she had said her coworker went to go on a vacation and she was standing in line at the airport. By the way, airports now are doing on the spot COVID testing with rapid results. And there was a gentleman who was in line in front of her coworker who tested positive for COVID, but he had the vaccine. So he was not showing any symptoms. But he had tested positive, which means he is a carrier and is infecting people who do not have the vaccine. And there was another story that Joe Rogan just released on his podcast the other day, that there was a celebrity who had the vaccine, but somehow still caught COVID. So the COVID vaccine does not make us immune to COVID. It is still a problem. So there is still pain on every side of that conversation. So what does that look like in terms of merging together onto that highway and working through that pain together look like for you, Nancy?
Well, the client's pain obviously is lack of healthcare literacy, misinformation, not knowing where to turn to get good information. And just confusion, and also the seeing differences between themselves and other family members or friends or employers whose opinions on how to handle it may be different. So there's some conflict. I think the pain within any healthcare professional and any small business owner is we have to be able to reach our clients with solid information. So there's, how do we bridge that gap? We as small business owners in healthcare need to work to be in front of our clients' windshields. We need to increase our visibility. We need to have clear messaging that means something to that client when they're looking. We need to be where they're looking. We need to be there with the words, the vision, and not just a listing of our services on a clinical billboardy site. It's an emotional thing. Now, the good news is most of us in healthcare are pretty good in the emotional arena, but we have to take it upon ourselves to really connect. And that's what all of my coaching and teaching is about. All of it is connecting, being visible, strategy, think differently. Use what you're already probably doing, but just tweak it a little bit or take it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps further. And I can teach people how to do that so that they are ready when there's a need, that they can be in front of that person with a meaningful message that will resonate.
Do you happen to have an example that you might be able to share with us about what you mean? Because I think a tangible example would be beneficial for some of our listeners.
Let me think. In the patient advocacy arena, I have a lot of people that I tell them, I'm a patient advocate. Well, that means absolutely nothing. So in my marketing or in my networking or in my verbal discussions with folks, I need to be able to tell them how I impact people's lives. There's a lot of storytelling, which is very hot in social media right now. And so I need to be able to tell people how I impact their lives. When people do come to understand, I get these two reactions. I get the, gosh, I wished I'd known you when, which just illustrates that there's a problem there. There's a disconnect there. And then the closely followed by, you must be very busy. And we are. And so, when people don't understand that we're out there, then that says to me, increase visibility. Find out where they are, online, in church, volunteer, community civic stuff, sporting events, anything. Find out where they are and be there. Take the first step, because when people are coming to us in healthcare, that's usually things are not in tip-top shape, shall we say. They're more than overwhelmed, and their healthcare literacy about how stuff works is not where it needs to be through no fault of their own. Our healthcare system is a maze, a kaleidoscope, and it's very difficult to understand. And that's why somebody who has worked inside that system can help you journey through. We see the missed pitfalls, and we can mitigate stuff, we can anticipate stuff, and you will have a safer journey and know more about what decisions you need to make. You can make those informed decisions that they always talk about.
That's a great example. And so when it comes, especially in this healthcare system, just like the world of finance, just like the world of marketing, just like the world of, name it. I mean, if you're not trained in an industry, any industry you're not trained in is a foreign language. It's a foreign language.
Yes.
And most of the time, individuals are not necessarily taking their free time to go and research some industry just so that they can be more informed and make sure that they're making the best decisions. We don't do that. We spend our free time doing things that we enjoy. We spend our free time with our family. We spend our free time traveling when we can. That's how people spend their free time. They're not going. Some people who just love to learn might go and research random industries, which is fine. And that's totally cool if that's you. But most, I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably 80% of American people, society, are not researching industries that they know nothing about just for the sake of knowing about it. So every industry is a foreign language to somebody. And so having that translator is so key. When it comes to the healthcare industry, you mentioned it being like a kaleidoscope. Are there certain things that a patient could do to better prepare themselves in a situation or for a situation that might come up unexpectedly? Their spouse has a heart attack. What's something that they should be aware of when they're going through maybe something like that?
Now, since I work in elder care and chronic care, the biggest thing that hits us are having your legal ducks in a row, having made designations. Who do I want to be my agent, who will hold power of attorney? If I can't speak for myself, who will speak for me? And that happens often, and it happens sooner. I could cite case after case. And that's also true of kids going off to college. You need a power of attorney designated, because your parents won't be able to get the information if you're in the hospital. So this time of year makes me think about that.
It's a good time of year to bring that up for sure.
Yes, there's another time of year that it's particularly popular conversation. It's called National Healthcare Decisions Day, NHDD, which is, and there's a funny story behind this. NHDD occurs every year on April the 16th. It's designed for us to take a look at, are our documents in place that convey what the heck we want. This is how we stay independent. This is how we have our say. We're going to think about it, put it on a document, and then we're going to tell somebody. We're going to designate our power of attorney. But it's April 16th because the only thing is certain is death and taxes. And since we know April 15th to be about taxes, then April 16th is NHDD every year.
That's I was going to say, why do we pile it right after tax day? But that makes perfect sense, actually.
And then, reviewing your legal documents and getting your wills. Obviously, there are a lot of people doing 11th hour activity along those lines because something's happening. Or it's too late to do something along those lines. But the best advice I ever heard was just tie down your review of stuff like that, of advanced directives, tie it down with something that will be cyclical and meaningful. You know, the way that we change our batteries, we change the batteries in our smoke detectors when the time changes to daylight savings time and back again. And people they know, I got to check my batteries in my fire. And so I had learned from an attorney. He said, every election year, I look at my documents, and something that comes around that he can tie that down to. So that's
a great tip to have a trigger that's not directly like personally related, because you don't want to make it related to a holiday, because you don't necessarily want to think about things like that at the holidays. You probably don't want to tie it to your birthday. Same reason. It's supposed to be a celebration. You don't really want to be thinking about that, but tying it to something that comes around all the time that you don't necessarily have an emotional attachment to can be that reminder that you need to double check on some of those documents. So you mentioned documents that we need, a healthcare power of attorney and then a power of attorney. What is the difference between the two?
Well, you can do a lot of it with a durable or general power of attorney, an umbrella overall, but you may have a situation where you want to designate somebody just to do the healthcare. I want this person to make my healthcare decisions if I'm unable. Either temporarily or from here on out, because people become temporarily incapacity, have temporary incapacity. But then there's another kind of attorney called a power of attorney document called a financial power of attorney. This person can take the action you need them to take. They can pay your bills. They can sell your home if we need to use that to free up monies to pay for your care. They can work with your financial professional to affect change that it will help prepare for your life and your care. And so it can be broken down specifically, or you can put one person in charge of all of that. But you have to do it while you have capacity yourself, while you're cognitively intact. Because if the train has left the station, you cannot create the documents. And then we have to pursue something that's a little more public and expensive called guardianship. And so,
interesting.
You know, people will avoid things like wills and legal documents, but I submit to you that anybody listening, this is how you maintain your independence. This is how you maintain control, by telling somebody what you want so you'll get it. That's pretty cool. And they have to carry it out, especially if it's in a written legal document. So another attorney friend of mine uttered the phrase, and I've adopted it and use it. You know, we can all have a say about how things will go and where we'll end up. It's that simple.
And that's exactly what those documents provide for us, is the power to have a say. So is there any pro or con to naming a family member as your power of attorney, or is it better to have somebody who's not emotionally connected to you be your healthcare power of attorney?
Not so much whether or not they're family. I think you need to look at any candidate, family member or not, as somebody who will do what you want, that won't cave under pressure, or that won't inflict their desires on top of yours. Case in point, and my sister doesn't mind me talking about this. My sister designated me as her healthcare power of attorney. I said, not your spouse. And she said, no. She said, he will cave. And when the man or woman comes to him in the white coat, he will do whatever they say. And that may not be what I want. And maybe I don't want this treated. Maybe and you are to uphold that for me. And she knows I won't cave. So it's more about the qualifications of the person you're considering. And will they uphold what you want? Will they follow your wishes?
That's such an important tip, especially for so many people who have the family that you might find yourself in the sandwich generation, where you're taking care of mom and dad and you have kids too. Or maybe you're not taking care of kids. You just have mom and dad that you're caring for. You need to be of the right mindset that you can do what mom and dad want, or you can do what your significant other wants. And it's not about you and your emotions. And that's really hard to separate. So I could definitely see value in having maybe a sibling be your healthcare power of attorney instead of your spouse, or having somebody else that maybe isn't even a family member, maybe they're just
Right.
a friend, be a power of attorney for you. So that way they can have that sound judgment. But there is some criteria to what does that look like? Are there questions that we could ask these people to determine, is this somebody who's going to cave, or is this somebody who's going to uphold my wishes?
I think if I'm the person who's looking around considering, then I'm going to use my judgment as to whether I think they will uphold what I want. And then we need to have that conversation. Can you do this? Because they may say, "No, I'm not comfortable. I don't want to serve in that capacity." Or they may say, "Yeah, absolutely. No, I will not budge from what you want." And then those conversations need to continue down as things progress down the road. I know now we're having, even inside of COVID, we're having conversations like, all right, what about a medically induced coma? What do you think about a medically induced coma during COVID, temporary, we think, and you can get as detailed as you want with some of this stuff. And I think it's the conversations that need to continue, just like with the advanced directives. Let's call them all live and living documents, because they are.
They're going to change just as much as your business plan does.
Yep. Amen.
Mm-hmm. So good, Nancy. This has been a wealth of knowledge. I so appreciate the tips that you've provided us today. What's the best way for our listening audience to get in touch with you again?
Well, they can, relative to small business management and coaching, it's nancyruffner.com. And then for the patient advocacy side, it's navigateinc.com.
Excellent. And for those of you that are listening, I, of course, am Terry Watkins, your host here at the Terrific Tips podcast, but I'm also the chief idea catcher over at Spin Frogs. And we are a forensic marketing firm that focuses in on supporting independent business owners, not unlike yourself, to avoid the pitfalls in their marketing so that they can maximize their return on investment and the impact that they want to leave on the world. At the end of the day, it's not about a prepackaged plan. It's about what you want to have happen. Just like this living document that Nancy was just talking about, your marketing is a living document. It is something that we need to organize and coordinate so that you can delegate. Can't delegate if you don't know what you're delegating. So let's put a plan together to help you delegate. And I'm giving away on my website, spinfrogs.com/gift, a free guide, 17 unbelievable ways to grow your social media. So if you're scratching your head right now going, what network should I be on? How do I stand out without looking like an idiot? What are some of the things that I need to know about social media? Go nab that free guide. It's available for you today. And I appreciate you taking a listen today. Nancy, I've got one more question for you.
Sure.
If there was one piece of advice that you would have given your younger self to move you into this trajectory sooner, what would that piece of advice be?
Listen to yourself and find your tribe. I knew basically what I was good at for a long time. And in jobs during my career, I knew what I liked and what I didn't like. I knew what environment I liked. I knew what job tasks I liked. I knew which ones I didn't like. I took jobs that I thought I would like, and I moved away from a lot of jobs that I didn't like. And so it's listening to yourself and realizing that you do have gifts, and maximize those gifts. Go find the people that can teach you what you need to know, and go out there and be authentic, and and maximize and work your vision. Work your vision.
Amen. That's so good. Tapping into who you are and what you truly want. This is a repeated message for us today. Really get in touch with the things that light your fire and pay attention to the things that don't. They're equally important. They are the things you can eliminate off of your list. If you are not interested at all in cooking, well, personal chef and working in a restaurant probably is not going to be high on your list. That is totally okay. If, driving around all day, stopping every 2 seconds is not something that you really think you're going to enjoy, then being a mail delivery person, probably not high on your list. So tapping into the things that really don't light your fire are just as important as tapping into the things that do, so that you can start to eliminate and focus your energy where you want to go. And for those of you who are in that transition stage, you're not really sure where you're trying to go next, it's a great tip. Just kind of center yourself on the things that really excite you. Thank you so much, Nancy. Are there any other nuggets or things that you would like to share with our audience today before we wrap up?
I'm full of nuggets. We could go all night, but we won't do that. I would encourage people to get in touch with me. I do offer a complimentary consultation on the coaching end. If you're not sure what you want to do, then let's have a conversation and talk about how we can get you like where you need to be, how you could step in to be the small business owner you need to be. If you're in need of patient advocacy services, there's complimentary consultation there too. Let's talk about what your concern is and how we can help you.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Nancy, for taking the time to be here with us today. I'm tongue-tied this afternoon. It's been a problem. And for those of you that are listening, thanks for staying with us to the end. Make sure you smash that subscribe button so you never miss another episode.